Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am BorderWise and welcome back to From the Depths, a quick guide, again. The reason this is a quick guide that's happening right now is because here in beautiful Aotearoa, New Zealand, we are starting to come out of the lockdown for you-know-what, and the closest thing I have to a regular job is starting to get busy again. And tomorrow I also have to help my flatmate move back into work properly, so I don't have much time to do any of the things that people actually want me to do on this channel. Sorry about that, so instead we're gonna do something quick and fun. And as you've probably guessed by the title of this video, it's about APS, because APS is fun to talk about, and it's fun to talk about and play with and stuff. So it's 5 handy APS shell tricks today, and pretty much all of these, well, almost all of them, there's at least one I found myself, were suggested to me in the comments section of various videos, and I have to apologize for two things. Firstly, I don't remember the names of anybody who told me these things, sorry about that. You know who you are though, and you are sexy, beautiful, smart people. Yes, you are. You just have to look at yourself in the mirror and that is the truth. And the second thing I have to apologize for is I don't remember which videos these were. Presumably APS videos, or maybe not. So without further ado, let's get into it. What we have here is a rather not interesting turret. It's not amazing. It's just got functional rather than amazing Tetris, belt-fed autoloaders, 1 meter shells, decent cooling rate, and 60mm, so no gauge increases needed. And it's just, I don't know, it has 2 aesthetic tweaks. Muzzle brake variant actually, the new one, which I love because it looks so smexy. No reason for it to have that at all, because it's on a fortress, and a mimicked whatchamacallit? Where is the damn thing? Aha! It is a mimicked rubber mantlet, which I'm getting incredibly fond of, so much that I've prefabbed it. So, this isn't what this is about. This is, oh yeah, we also have our lovely friend the Marauder over there, ready to do sterling work as our target dummy. So, first shell is using a component that I usually never used before somebody told me about this. Again, sorry, sexy smart person, I don't remember who you are. So you'll notice immediately, just looking at the shell, that it's a long shell. It's about as long as a 60mm shell can get, and it's got lots of frag and inertial fuse. It's rather bog standard, really. Fragments are set to 135 degrees, because other smart sexy people have told me that that is the optimal angle between making all your fragments go in the right direction and them doing good damage. Apparently people have done math on this. And the head of the shell is a little unusual. It's a stabilizer fin body. And you might be wondering why on earth you'd do that, because having, well, almost anything else improves the range and the speed of it. So if I, for instance, stick a frag head, it goes from 392 meters per second and about 1700 meters of range to over 500 meters per second, over 3000 meters of range. And so why would you ever stick a why would you ever stick a stabilizer fin body on the head? And for that matter, why would you ever use these things? If you want to increase accuracy, you just, well, tweak the shell, just add more gunpowder or lengthen the barrel. But, so if I stick a stabilizer fin body here, it's a shell inaccuracy changed to 89%, so that means that the initial inaccuracy of the shell, assuming this was any other kind of shell component, it's only 89% of that. As was pointed out to me by aforementioned sexy smart person, that gets stronger the further towards the head of a shell it is. So that was 89% towards the back of where the warheads are, and going here, well, it's actually the same. Never mind, I lied. But if you stick it right on the head, what you get is this. Shell accuracy reduced to 20%, so it's basically an 80% accuracy increase at the cost of speed and range. But this particular shell still goes 392 meters per second, which honestly is fast enough for a lot of things in From the Depths. You can catch up to most ships and even a lot of airships like this. And if you want more speed, more gunpowder, or even some rail power, like you stick 500 rail power on this, ta-da, 600 meters per second. But we're not going to do that. And range is 1700, but 20% of that. So, I want to show you the difference there by sticking, once again, a frag warhead body there, taking this thing out of play, putting it back in play. Let's check this. 412 meters per second. And, wait, no, that's frag warhead body. My bad, let's try that again. Frag head.
Listening.
So let's try that again. 536 meters per second. That barrel is slightly... no, the barrel has a... Let's get rid of this. There we go, 536 meters per second. Inaccuracy of 0.22 degrees, which is pretty good. However, if you do this, watch what happens. So, here we go. Middle, stabilizer fin. Reset that. So, the muzzle velocity is 392 meters per second. Inaccuracy is 0.04 degrees. That is, honestly, a lot more accurate than you need a lot of guns to ever be. But it means that this thing basically never misses a stationary target. So it's going way over there. And you can see it's bouncing. But, like, it's not whiffing, really, like, at all, ever. It's just too accurate. And the Marauder is doing lovely, lovely work just sitting here and taking it. So that's a handy trick if you want an incredibly accurate gun, is just to stick a stabilizer fin right on the front of it. So that's APS trick number 1. Let us destroy absolutely everything and spawn in our second fortress. Grav Compensator already gives the game away a little bit. So what is this? So, the Grav Compensator, in case you're wondering, is another thing that I've never really used on shells much before. And reading this out loud, the Grav Compensator adds a downforce where possible to simulate the gravity strength of the aiming and firing altitude at all high altitudes. This helps maintain accuracy when firing high trajectories. That basically means that you can fire this gun in space and it still drops. So basically you can still arc shots in space, and means that you can, I don't know, you can have it basically makes APS guns more accurate in zero gravity, because it means that the AI can just essentially arc the shells properly. So this isn't a tremendously useful component, because most of the time I'm guessing you're not going to stick APS guns in space. However, you will notice this shell is a little weird. So if we zoom in, you'll notice this is almost entirely frag bodies and a squash head right on the top, and there's only one gunpowder component. This shell is very, very slow, 154 meters per second, and yet it has a range of 4,000 meters. That is because of the Grav Compensator. This, it doesn't say in any of the tooltips, this thing massively increases range. In fact, it increases it more than a base bleeder does. So, with a base bleeder, the shell has about 2,400 meters of effective range. The Grav Compensator does about twice that. In fact, it stacks, for one thing, and you can stack this together. Yeah, like, the more Grav Compensators you stick on this, the longer the range is. This is a very slow shell and a very low gauge. Usually these things have really poor range, so if we do this, well, it's still about 2,000 meters with a single gunpowder shell, but if you drop it down to, say, 18 millimeters, you can just, if you still want this thing to arc properly, boom, 1,200, boom, 1,800, boom, 2,400, with a very, very slow, very low gauge shell. It's quite a handy trick, actually. So to the sexy, smart person who told me this, I thank you very much. You are sexy and smart. And once I do this, yeah, so this is actually a pretty effective way to have a long-range APS mortar should the fancy strike you for such a thing. So if we go here, and if we set this to prefer high, and we spawn in our friend the Marauder, you can actually have shells arc like that. These aren't very good, by the way, because unlike cram shells, they don't have that lovely APN-style guidance once they end up way up here in space. And that Grav Compensator actually means that they fall once they're in space, so even if they're really high velocity, they can still do something. Shell life also has a tendency to despawn them, but we're actually getting shells somewhere in the postcode of this Marauder, which is interesting. In fact, we actually might start hitting the thing one day. You see they're despawning. That is a bit of a problem. But once the Marauder gets closer... Wait for it. Wait for it. Come on now. This worked a lot better when I tested it beforehand. Come on, we want at least one scratch on the Marauder, guys. Nope. I should turn that down a little bit more. Well, you get the idea. Here we are shooting a thing reasonably long distance away. Very slow, very accurate shells. This is basically if you ever wanted to make a rapid-fire cram cannon, but that's not really a good idea. This is the next best thing, is having a shell with grav compensators to give it extra range and just have it very slow. And you are a weird person if you want that, by the way. And I'm saying this as a enthusiastic cram gunner myself, but you know what? This is interesting. This is not something I would ever usually consider using APS for. So on that note, on to number 3 of our frankly weird APS tricks. And once again, the title of the the title of the thing, the fortress, has given the game away. This is about skimmer tips. So. Skimmer tips are yet another. There's a lot of components I usually don't use being featured in this video. Skimmer tips are a thing that I never usually use, like, ever. Because, well, why would you? In case you don't know what that is, the shell will have a 100% chance to skim back off the water surface and up into the air. And increases the angle of incident for skimming from 15% to 30%. So basically it means this is a hydrophobic shell. It will bounce off water, and it's basically like just if it hits the water at anything shallower than a 30-degree angle, it will like go through it. In fact, I'm not sure if it can penetrate water at all. Yep, it can't. So you see, that's the skimmer tip. It's basically acts a little bit like, you know, that thing you do, like, on a pond, and you just kind of bounce rocks off it? That's what this does, except you can't really bounce them more than once, because they move too fast. So, there's not really a lot of call for that shell head, especially since, in the aim point selection configuration, you've got this option, which is, try to target blocks above water. So why ever would you need this? Well, it is quite a niche thing, but if you want a shell that explodes above something consistently, which is impossible to usually do because, well, at least with the AI aiming, because the gun will always aim at a block. It won't aim, like, above a craft, or won't aim just below it, and it'll try to lead the target, but it won't aim just above the deck. So I've yet to find a ship which demonstrates this very nicely, but if you have a timed fuse shell, like for this particular case, these shells, these frags are angled in a way that they explode downwards, what you can do is, spawn in the Marauder again, not gonna be the best demonstration of this, because it just hits the target directly, but let's see if we can find, I think there was one shell that bounced off the water. Wait for it. Okay, that missed completely. But basically, what if you are better at crafting these damn things than I am? You can get a shell that... Wait, they move too fast. I can't see them. Basically, you've got a shell that, if it hits the wall... Wait, is this gonna do it? Yes, it did. Yes. Look at that bounce. So, what you get is something that, at least in timed fuses, it never misses targets that are on the surface of the water. Because every time it bounces off the water, it basically skips up directly into the face of whatever it's aiming at. And also this works beautifully with timed fuses because ordinarily water slows down shells. So this, I guess, in practical terms, this is something that could be used also by supercavitation shells. So you stick a supercavitation base on the back. And what that means is that the slowdown caused by water doesn't screw with the timer. Because usually what happens, if a shell like this penetrates the water, it gets slowed down really quickly and it explodes just short. Now, you can stick a supercavitation base on it and it won't get slowed down by the water much at all, but it will still get slowed down a little bit, explode slightly short, and also supercavitation bases reduce the firepower of shells to about 75%. So, if you want a 100% firepower timed fuse, you can do this. You can have a skimmer tip and it is guaranteed to skip off the water and explode either directly on the target or just, yes, I think that was it actually. Yep, that one either, I'm not sure if it skipped, but it could bounce off the water and explode just above it. And if you've done something like what I've done and just rigged the fragments to spray downwards, you actually end up with a kind of decent deck shredder. And I remember this from ages ago. I think it was a ship I reviewed as part of a subscribercraft review. Ages ago it had this kind of thing. Or it might not have been. See, my memory is bad. I freely admit this. I do not have a good brain when it comes to remembering things. So yeah, it's just timed skimmer timed fuse shells are actually pretty good because they are kind of reliably hit things above the waterline. So yep, that is that. So let's go here and destroy everything again, and we're on to number 4. And this is the one I figured out for myself, and this is basically me being lazy. And laziness, well, there's a fine line between being lazy and being efficient. Get in the water, you silly fortress. So, if you're like me and you like sticking loads of warheads on a shell, so this isn't the best example, so I'm talking more about a shell that has this many components in it, which is a silly number of components and is usually a sign that you're fond of 18mm guns a bit too much. You will probably note that it is a pain in the ass to correctly calibrate like all the stuff. So if you have, say, a shape charge head, and you want a whole bunch of, let's say we want a max gauge shell here. That is a 24-meter shell, don't worry about it, this is just for science. HE. And say you want to make this less of a shaped charge head, or rather a pure heat shell, and you want to make it more of a heat-flavored shell. So the main damage is going to be explosive, and the heat is just going to be there for a little bit of versatility, just so it reaches through armor a little bit better than just a pure HE shell would do. Now you could go and artificially set these, okay, I want that full, I want that full, I want that, and just like, and do that, but then no, I want that. You could do that, or you could just pick the number of HE warheads you want there, and then you stick a flak warhead just in the middle there. Now the reason you'd use a flak warhead is because this still does HE damage, and it actually adds more damage after a certain point with stacked HE warheads. So, if we demonstrate something here. Anyway, there's a certain point in which HE warheads, they don't stack much anymore and you're better off using flak. So, with that in mind, what you can do, just to save it, this is a time saver by the way, rather than messing with the special factor of all these things, what you can do, you can stick a flak warhead there, and then you don't have to, it's basically a shortcut to setting all these special factors to 0. So here is the actual shell in which we've done that, and it's just one pure one. These are set to 0.8, but because the flak warhead is there, they're not contributing any to the squash head, and they're lovely and explodey. And this is a 120mm gun, and let's just shoot at the Marauder because that's fun, and also because 120mm guns sound awesome. So nice and explodey, you can see the numbers up in the You can see the numbers up in the top right there. I'm not sure what accent that was. Scottish, Irish, pirate farmer. Slow shell. But yeah, lots of boom boom. Boom boom boom, I want you in my room. I learned just the other day that that's the Venga Boys and not the Spice Girls. Don't ask me about that, I don't even know myself. So, and the last thing we're going to talk about is a similar shortcut trick. So, here we got a very long, silly shell. So, one thing you can do is like, say you want, let's see, how many of these? Say you want about 50-50 gunpowder and very precise frag warheads. So set to a specific angle. So, say we want 12 of these. No, let's say we want a lot of these. So 4 times 6 is a number. It's 24, right? Yes, it is. So 1, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. Okay, so now I want an equal number of frag warheads on this thing. So here I go here, last 4 ones, and I go frag. I'm in the dev test, by the way, so say I want this to be exactly 51 for whatever reason. Not a good angle to use, by the way, this is just for giggles. So here, 51, 51, 51, and I have a lot more of those to fill out, and I'm lazy. So what you do instead is here, just this, on this specific segment, with those 4 setup frag warheads, you just prefab it. Ta-da! And that is a lot faster, and a lot easier, and a lot less fiddly than just going in and typing all these things themselves. And then you just stick a, well, I don't know, I'll stick a shape charge here, because that's a nurse refusal in one, and ta-da! I have a lot of frag warheads with exactly the same angle on them, and it is beautiful. And I just noticed this is a 20-meter long shell. Wow. Yeah, that is silly. I don't think we're ever going to be able to fire that. Like, even at 120... Actually, what gauge is this at 120 millimeters? That is a 5-meter shell. That's hilarious. So that's basically it for this video. This was not as quick as I thought it was going to be, because I went on a tangent or two. But that's 5 handy APS shell tricks. It's like stabilizing the fins on the front of a shell, grav compensators to improve range. They're actually better than base bleeders at that, weirdly enough. Skimmer tip plus timed fuses, and sticking flak warheads in instead of HE warheads, or even frag warheads, or any other kind of non-HE warhead you like, really, except Sabot warhead bodies, because those mess up your stees. And yeah, and just a little reminder that prefabbing is amazing, and if you want to make long shells, they can be a real time saver. So, on that note, thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon if you like, it really helps. Thank you to all my current Patreon supporters, and I will see you next time in From the Depths. Quick guides, let's keep shooting at a Marauder because that's really fun and cool. And Marauders totally deserve it, they're dicks. So, yeah, farewell!